give troopers a bird's eye view.
We're here in East Memphis where there was an officer injured in a crash. Shelby Oaks Drive has been blocked off from Lamar to Malone. I'm step aside so you can see. In South Memphis, one person is dead and 4 others, including a child, were hurt following a crash this morning.
Brittany, thank you so much for being here. Now, he's confessed to 2 kidnapping cold cases, right?
Kevin Shouse was arrested for sexually assaulting a 4-year-old.
Now, we drove up and down Poplar Avenue, and literally it's power on, power off, power on, power off. And it only took less than 5 minutes for this shirt to be frozen, and now it's just stiff as a board.
Indoor air pollution is also important, especially since we're cooped up at home and using supplies to kill bacteria.
One of the most common side effects of getting the COVID-19 vaccine is a sore arm. But the reason isn't just the needle. Just 8 months after getting a new heart, Joe got in a motorcycle accident. He was told he would never walk again, but he's walking. He says if he can get a new heart and live, there's no way anyone can tell him he can't walk. But it's people like our educators who've quickly adjusted, giving our youth the encouragement to push forward. I can feel the coldness through my gloves. That's how hard this banana is. But it worked. It definitely worked. So there you have it. If you freeze a banana out long enough, especially in temperatures like this, you can use it as a hammer. Music has a way of sticking with us. It's a reminder of the moments, people, places, even our childhood. Devastating start to this neighborhood's day. One person has died in a fire at the home behind me on LaBelle Street in Bethel Grove. A neighbor who lives across the street, Andre Cook, saw everything unfold. He said an elderly man who was also a veteran lived in this home. The elderly man had been without power for the past 6 days as a result of last week's storm. Around 2 this morning, Andre Cook tried to warm up his car when he noticed smoke coming from the home. That's when he, without taking a second thought, called the fire department and ran over to help the elderly man inside.
My instinct was to get in there to get him. So I kicked the door in and the fire blew out. It blew me off the porch. By that time, my neighbor came across the street and tried to go in there, but the fire was just too engulfed.
Now, this side of LaBelle Street has power. The other side where the fire took place is without power. Andre Cook tells me that this neighborhood has been helping each other ever since that storm happened, and they say that they're a tight-knit community and they will truly miss the neighbor who died in this fire. In Bethel Grove, I'm Brittani Moncrease reporting. A peaceful summer day sets the scene for an area of bliss. But where some find beauty, others see a beast.
It is a Confederate marker
cemented in Collierville's Town Square Park, a place for unity where division creeps around the corner.
It just makes me feel like I got a slap in the face, basically. And that's why I fight so hard to remove it.
It needs to stay there. There's no reason. I mean, we're in the South, okay?
High school student Sydney Morris and recent high school grad Nicole Lee are organizers with Collierville Community Justice.
We believe it is problematic, portrays Confederate soldiers as heroic instead of traitors, promotes this idea that slavery was a benign institution.
But across the square, Evan Leake, whose family claims the land, has another view.
It's not a Confederate monument. It's a memorial to the Battle of Collierville, and it honors the dead, whether they were north, south, black, or white. It didn't matter.
The stone, now grounded in a battle of its own.
We started that campaign last summer, have the Confederate marker relocated to a private location.
They say they're inclusive, but how can you be inclusive and have a blatantly racist marker?
For some, a marker of the past with a statute of limitations.
It's time to get over your offense. I don't hold anybody responsible for anything that happened back then because all those people are dead. There's nobody around. There's no slaves around here. And I've never seen that monument out there slap anybody or say anything ugly to anybody ever. It's not hurting anybody. If it does, then you're a wimp.
So they find themselves at a crossroads.
We'll be here as long as that problematic symbol stays here.
If they're free to complain about it, it's free for that to be there.
Free, a word of obtainment in the past that continues to define the future. Brittani Moncrease, Local 24 News. This plot of land in Cordova is full of history. History that Samaria Granberry sees and feels.
Just walking and thinking about, like, this is the land that, like, my great-grandfather walked and that he loved.
For Samaria, this couple of acres in Cordova and this modest house are where her ancestors staked their claim to the American dream.
So this has just always been, like, the home house we always come back to.
Working their way from sharecroppers to homeowners in the 1940s, Samaria's family bought this land from a white man, Samuel McCleskey, who purchased hundreds of acres and sold them to black families.
My great-grandfather, yeah, he used this entire field. Like, anyone in this area knows that Mr. Frank, they used to come and get greens, you know, corn, like everything. He farmed this entire land. I used to come over here sometimes. He'd be on the porch shucking corn or picking greens, you know, and so he loved it.
Alongside Mr. Frank was his best friend, Barton Rogers.
If the good Lord lets me live, I'll be 90 in August.
Also known as Mr. Buddy.
We got along real good, and Frank was honest. He was a Christian too.
He farmed this entire land up until he was 80. You know, he was in this field with his cane, with his walker, still farming. When I was in college, I went and studied abroad. I went back to Africa. I studied abroad, and my great-grandfather, I told him about it. I told him I was going back to Africa, and I would bring him back something. But while I was gone, he passed away, and so I wasn't able to make it back home. I wasn't able to, like, say goodbye to him.
It's been a while since the family farmed this land, but Samaria's family's roots run deep, and now she's replanting to continue a legacy that started more than 70 years ago.
Agriculture is so deeply rooted into, like, the African-American culture.
Samaria is building on her family's legacy of farming. She's become a dietitian, educating and growing food for her community.
Like, this community is such a gem. You know, there's not many areas where there's family land still.
And on Juneteenth, she's hosting her first Feeding the Root Grow Market on the very land where her family planted their roots generations ago.
What a really cool way to tie food into culture. You know, let's just do it all together. Let's do a market, let's celebrate culture, let's celebrate freedom.
Fulfilling the promise to her great-grandfather, Mr. Frank, a promise that, like a root, holds strong, growing into its own.
I feel like having the market here is like an opportunity for me to, like, give back to him, you know, and bring something back to him, because I know that if he was here, like, he would be so excited, you know, because this is what he did. Like, he grew food and he fed the neighborhood, and so I think that is an opportunity for me to give something back to him and, like, you know, keep that promise that I'm going to bring something back to him. So,
sowing a legacy with a harvest based on community. Brittani Moncrease, Local 24 News.